When making logical arguments, it's important to know that you can write statements in different ways. Let's start with how to write the converse. Converse means you're switching the order of the hypothesis and the conclusion. So if the conditional statement was P arrow Q, this becomes Q arrow P in the symbolic form. The converse is equivalent in truth value to the inverse, which means if the converse is true, the inverse is also true. Let's see some examples of writing the converse. Translate each statement into symbolic form using your own letters. Then write the converse for each conditional statement. So we'll start with the symbolic form. If you play on the tennis team, then you like tennis. Using any letters we want, perhaps starting with E and going to F. That means our hypothesis, this part right here after the if, is E, represented as E, and everything after then, the conclusion, is F. If we write the converse, that means we switch the order. So we begin with F and then flow to E. Now notice I didn't circle the if because the if stays at the beginning of the sentence, and I didn't circle then because then stays in the middle of the sentence. So here's what it looks like. If, so the F goes first, you like tennis, then, and now the E, you play on the tennis team. How about you give a shot to the second one, assigning your own letters for the conditional statement and then writing the converse. Now, when I said the converse has the same truth value as the inverse, I'm speaking of equivalent statements. Equivalent statements are pairs of statements that have the same truth value, such as the converse and inverse. They have the same truth value, and the conditional and the contrapositive. Having the same truth value means they are both true or they are both false. Now we're going to start looking at the word negation to talk about other ways we can change statements. Where's another place you've heard the word negate or negative? Write in the margin on the left side of your notes what it means then. Make a prediction about what you think it will mean in a sentence. Pause the video to do this. For statements, negation means to do the opposite, or what we often think of as negative, of the statement. It means put in the not. That's how we do it with words, or if there's already a not, we take out the not. It's written in symbolic form with a squiggly, like the negative in math, and then whatever letter we're using for that part of the statement. Let's look at a couple of examples. Negate these statements. You like to dance. We are going to write the opposite, meaning putting in a not because there needs a not in this sentence for negating. You like to dance turns into you do not like to dance, or you don't like to dance. What if there's already a not, like in the don't here? There's a not here. We don't say you don't not eat spinach. We say you eat spinach. We took out the not. Let's see when we use negation. The inverse means that we negate the hypothesis and conclusion of the conditional statement. Since it's of the conditional statement, that means the order stays the same. We just put the negative. Negative P, then negative Q with the squiggly symbol. Remember that the inverse is equivalent in meaning, in truth value, to the converse. Let's look at an example. Translate the statement into symbolic form. Then write the inverse for the conditional statement. If it is 6 p.m., then it is time for dinner. Well, if we call the hypothesis G and the conclusion H, the symbolic notation would be G arrow H. Changing it to the inverse keeps it in this order but negates it. Squiggly G or not G, then not H, like that. Notice again, I did not circle the if, I did not circle the then. So those parts of the statement stay there. What changes is the hypothesis. It is 6 p.m. turns into it is not 6 p.m. Then it is time for dinner, then it is not time for dinner. So there's the inverse. The contrapositive means that we negate, so using negative again, negate the hypothesis and the conclusion, kind of like we did in the inverse, but this time we're doing it of the converse. So what does that mean for what the order looks like? It's flipped and negated. So negated, not, the Q will come first, then the P. So think to yourself for contrapositive, it's the longest word that we've seen so far today. Flip and negate. Do everything you can to it. Flip it and negate it. Now remember that the contrapositive is equivalent to the conditional, and that's the law of the contrapositive, that it's the same truth value as the conditional statement. If the conditional statement is true, the converse is also true. Let's look at an example. Translate the statement into symbolic form, then write the converse and the contrapositive of the conditional statement. If you visited Sterling, then you were in Virginia. The part that's the hypothesis after the if, let's assign that letter N. You were in Virginia, coming after the then, let's assign that letter R. So we will say N, then R. If I write the converse, remember that switches the order. R, arrow, N. Flip it around. The contrapositive, long word, starts with a C. So I do the C word first, flipping it around, starting with the R, but making it negative. Negative R, then negative N, or not R, then not N. So let's write the converse. Remember the if and the then stay in those places. If, then, but the words get changed around. R was what we ended with. You were in Virginia. So if you were in Virginia, then, now I use the N, you visited Sterling. The contrapositive takes exactly the order of the converse but negates it. So again, I'm beginning with if and later using then, but I'm negating this. You were in Virginia, you were not in Virginia. Then you did not, remember negating, visit Sterling. Let's take a moment to talk about the truth values of these statements. First of all, this conditional statement, if you visited Sterling, then you were in Virginia. If we're talking about the town Sterling that's in Virginia, that is a true statement. This is true. You can't visit the town of Sterling that's in Virginia and not be in Virginia. The converse, if you were in Virginia, then you visited Sterling. Well, there's a lot of other towns in Virginia, so you didn't have to visit Sterling. Finally, the contrapositive, if you were not in Virginia, so you did not enter the state, then you did not visit Sterling. Absolutely true, because how can you visit Sterling if you were not in Virginia? Notice that the contrapositive has the same truth value as the conditional, even though the converse did not. Finally, on the summary section of your notes, let's practice translating. If a conditional statement is translated as B arrow E, write the symbolic notation for each of these, the converse, the inverse, and the contrapositive. See you in class.